Hello everybody, I'm here today with Amy!
Hi, Karen.
Hello my darling, thank you for helping me do this video. Just to let
You're
everybody,
welcome.
know, Amy is blind. Explain it, Amy, you're helping me.
Yes, Karen has all the research that she's looking at, and so she's going to be reading the questions that's in the research, and I'm just kind of listening.
Yeah, just so that everybody knows, if say things move on or Amy doesn't, it's because Amy doesn't see, but she is prepared to help me. But Amy,
Yes.
what I decided was, after we've now found cars back to 1769 and cameras back to the or photographs back to the 1700s, it's all looking a bit weird. So I thought, well, I wanted to know what we were, because obviously they start, if you watch odd videos, I watched one and they were explaining that some of the ships went from England all up to Russia and along there, and they made loads of money dropping off goods. I was trying to find, I started looking in the 1300s, and it didn't give me any information for that. Except up there it says 13 to 1400s in European fashion. But when they start talking about trading, which is ships, I'm not going to get into the maritime and all that kind of stuff because that's crazy. But it's the 14 and 1500s really.
Yes.
So I'll just put the little video on because obviously I'll make a little video about it. I shall ask Amy some questions. So basically, the Spanish prospered during the 1400s from trade in crafts such as leather and metalworking. Spain also produced oil, olive oil, wine, fruit and grain. However, Spanish agriculture, which depended on the labour of the Moors, sadly suffered heavily when the Moors were expelled from the country in 1492. Did you know that, Amy? The Moors.
Yes, I have heard about the Moors, and they had taken over Spain for a while.
Yeah, and then they were expelled in 1492. But there must have been quite a few of them. You couldn't. It's not just 10 men, is it?
No, I know. It would have been quite a few of them.
Didn't they go to Ireland?
They went to Ireland?
The Moors were in Ireland as well, weren't they?
Oh, okay. Yes, I have heard that too.
You know Dave Moore?
Yes.
So anyway, so that obviously I'm just, when I see the questions, I will go to them, and I've tried to just get as many as possible. But anyway, let's move on because we will be here forever otherwise. So I've explained.
Yeah.
But do that. Even if it's not all, I mean, when our history.
Yeah, well, I actually wrote a whole paper about it when the Moors were in Spain and all the influence that they had over Spain in some of the building styles and a lot of the culture. The Moors influenced it quite a bit. So I didn't remember the year 1492, but I did write a lot.
It's moved a bit now. We're going backwards, Amy.
Yes.
In time.
And then 1492 is when they say that Columbus discovered America.
Yes, I'm going to get to that in a minute because it goes in with other dates as well. So anyway, what was traded in the 1400s? Well, I think I go to that one in a minute. Let's move on because I think I bring them both up. And the 1500s. Oh, I go 1500s. But anyway, so in the 1500s, Indian ports were more than transit points. However, they were also markets themselves. The extent of India's land and the diversity of its resources made ports the source of a variety of textiles, including silk, muslin, and raw products like sugar, rice, cotton, and indigo. And you're thinking, sounds like today, doesn't it, really?
Yeah, that's right.
And then there's another one. So, what goods were traded in the Middle Ages? So it's got shoes, clothing, tools, wine, olive oil, and wool. But I will get to bits in a minute, Amy, because I obviously looked up loads of stuff.
Yeah.
But I was just trying to, because he's sailing around this stuff.
True.
So, what did England trade in the 1500s? What do you reckon, Amy?
Tea.
Let me look on my... No. Not on this one.
Not tea. Oh.
So it says here, exports to the Connollies. How do you say that? I can't say it.
Colony.
That's it, colonies.
The colony.
I was saying it right. It didn't sound right. Consisted mainly of wooden textiles. Imports included sugar, tobacco, and other tropical groceries for which there was a growing consumer demand. We're talking of the 1500s here.
Yeah.
And then it says the triangular slave trade had begun to supply these Atlantic colonies with unfree African labour or work on tobacco, rice and sugar plantations. But we've already done that one. In America, when you were a second-class citizen, but all immigrants were called the same thing. And they all got given land and a little farm, and they had their families or whatever. They just couldn't go to the balls and things like that. So they weren't shackled and all that kind of stuff. And as much as they say the Africans were slaves, we were slaves because the Barbary ships would come along and then go, there's a ship full of people, take them, make them into slaves. So it's hard to work out who was actually the slaves and who wasn't anymore. You know, when you look into it, this is what we found over the months, isn't it?
Exactly.
Anyway, let's move on. Yeah, carry on, Amy.
To say it was more a matter of much money and grab you and
money. Right, so it says, what did they trade in the medieval times? What's your thoughts on that one?
In the medieval times, some kind of spices, or
that one's good. Well done.
Maybe like silk or some kind of fabric.
Yes, well done, Amy. That's 2. You got another 10 to go.
Oh yeah. Was it still?
This was goods traded between the Arab world and Europe, included. So you've got silk, and you did spices. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 7 other ones.
Is it some kind of food? Like a certain vegetable or something like that?
Shall I put you out of your misery? It says slaves, spices, perfumes, gold, jewels, leather goods, animal skins, and luxury textiles, especially silk. So this is what was going on. So this is goods traded between the Arab world and Europe.
Cool.
So I wonder who was giving what then. But anyway.
Yes.
And then it says, what did India trade in the 1400s? So let's have a look. It's just about countries. So fine textiles, silk, gold and other metals, various precious and semi-precious stones, and spices and aromatic products.
Wow.
I mean, this is in the 1400s.
Okay.
So at the end of it, I thought, well, nothing then.
It hasn't.
So this one says, what was sold at the medieval markets? Obviously, that's here. So there was 2 types of markets, those that handled locally produced goods and those that handled goods from further afield. Well, we've got things like that today.
That's right.
The former would provide such things as food, clothes, leather, coal, salt and fish. The latter provided food, wool, wine, clothes and luxuries. But we're talking of the medieval times, so it basically sounds like today.
It does.
Yeah, just the ships have got a bit better maybe. But anyway, we'll move on.
Yeah.
But you never know quite.
That's right.
What was happening in England in the 1400s? You got any idea? This is a history test for you, Amy, but this is English.
Like a history test.
Obviously it's a little bit more linked to England, isn't it? Because I'm in England when I'm asking the questions. But so, what do you think happened in the 1400s?
Was there some kind of a war, maybe, in the 1400s?
I think that's coming up a little bit later. But with England, it says in the 14th century in England saw the Great Famine and the Black Death. And
wow.
Killed But you will, if we ever believe what they say, that killed around half of England's population, throwing the economy into chaos and undermining the old political order.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, but it's probably not true, is it?
That's right. It's right.
I mean, there's not many people here. It was the Black Death which got you, and today it's something else, isn't it?
Exactly.
Right, we're moving on. What was the most commonly traded... Oh, anyway, it's going to move on. Is it doing it? I haven't put the video on. That would help. Right, the video... What did England import colonies? And it was. I think we've got another one coming. And one was an import, and one... It's quite this. So, what did England import? So it says lumber, wool, iron. It changes a little bit. Cotton, tobacco, rice, and indigo. We've kind of had that before. But then it said... And what was the most commonly traded? So it's imported and traded. Exotic silks and spices, cumin, ginger, pepper, nutmeg, and cinnamon. I'm going to talk a little bit about pepper because pepper was worth more than gold.
Wow.
And they used it to heal people. So that's probably why I really like it.
Yeah.
And frankincense to Egypt via the Red Sea. But anyway... These are just finding out little bits of information. We can't tell if any of them are right because we lied for crap. So let's. What was the most? Oh, I've done that one. Oh, and there's another one. What were the main items of trade in medieval India? What do you reckon they are, Amy? It's a multiple question for you. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 items on this one.
Was it spices?
Yeah, good girl, Amy.
Let's see. Was it some kind of jewelry?
Jewels, it says, but that obviously means crystals, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I'll put you about your misery, Amy. I'm only teasing you with the questions, but it's easy when you can see the answers. Cotton, spices, jewels, precious and semi-precious stones, ivory, ebony, and perfumes. That was India.
Okay. Yes, that makes sense.
And then it says, how did trade and commerce grow in the Middle Ages? As trade and commerce grew, so did towns. And at the beginning of the Middle Ages, most trade was in luxury goods, which only the wealthy could afford. People made everyday necessities for themselves. And by the high Middle Ages, more local people were buying and selling more kinds of products.
Wow.
But if most of us had died from the Black Plague, or that's where they brought us in, that was the 1400s. And that's when the War of the Roses was happening.
Oh, yes. The War of the Roses.
Yeah, I did put loads of these things down because obviously I just wanted to know. There's a post to one another. They basically told me if you had money, everything was all right. But it doesn't sound that downtrodden. But then comes life was harsh with a limited diet and little comfort. Women were subordinate to men in those and the peasant role classes. Noble classes, and were expected to ensure the smooth running of the household. Children had a 50% survival rate beyond the age of 1 and began to contribute to family life at about the age of 12. So after saying that we got all these spices and things and cottons and we're sort of quite, set for that, actually living here would have been harsh.
Yes.
But this is what they always say, because it probably, if you're poor, it's harsh. But it probably wasn't like that. They were making cars and cameras, so it couldn't have been.
Exactly. It couldn't have been that.
No. You can never believe anything they say, but this is their history. 15 minutes video. And then it says, how did people buy things in the medieval times? So what they basically said was they had 2 types of markets. And one was 2 types of market. Plates, bowls, jars, and made from clay were common. Weekly markets and fairs were the main way in which medieval people bought and sold goods.
Mm-hmm.
But we do that today, don't we, in the markets?
That's true.
And how did people pay for stuff in the Middle Ages? How do you reckon they paid for it, Amy?
Did they trade items?
So they basically said medieval money was currency in the form of coins that came in varying quantities and weights. The other currency used was that of a promise, which was used in large-scale transactions. The most common coin throughout the Middle Ages was the small silver penny, farthing, or denarius. I've never heard of that before. Denarius. What does that say, Amy?
I'm not sure if it's denarius.
Have you ever heard of that before?
Yes, I believe I have read it, and I think it's in the King James Bible is where I've read it.
So was that a currency for the world then?
Unless when the King James translation came through, they just used the English word, but they really meant it could be like a penny for the Americans. So I'm not sure if that would have been the whole world's currency. Maybe it was.
Right.
But I'm pretty sure that's where I've seen that.
Well, I've never heard of that word before, but anyway, so penny farthing it was.
Unusual.
Was well for England in the 1400s. Do you know which king it was, Amy? Obviously, we're talking about England.
Yes. In the 1400s.
It's before Henry VIII.
Was it Richard II?
No, it was Henry VI. We've got Henry VII and Henry VIII, but Henry VIII was a Tudor, and this guy here was a Plantagenet, wasn't he? Or a York.
Yeah. Okay.
The son of Gaunt, third son of Edward III, Henry returned from exile in France to reclaim his estates previously seized by Richard II. He was accepted as king by Parliament. I didn't think we had much of a Parliament in that then. I thought it all started in the 1800s, really, and they made the Labour Party.
That's what I thought.
Well, it was more concentrated, weren't they? So I'm saying king accepted by Parliament, although the king ruled, didn't they, the Parliament then, whereas they're saying the Queen doesn't, but we know she does. Henry spent most of his 13-year reign defending himself against plots, rebellions and assassination attempts. That sounds fun, doesn't it?
Oh, I know. Wow.
Yeah, so anyway, so it was Henry, so that 1913. What? I did press that one right. What are the results of population growth in England in the 1400s? So it says, as the 15th century came to a close, even though they're talking of the 1400s, I just don't get that. But anyway, the rate of population began to increase and continued to rise throughout the following centuries. The population, which in 1400 may have dropped as low as 2.5 million, had by 1600 grown to about 4 million. But that's because we'd had the Black Plague and it had killed half the population, so they're saying.
Right.
And then obviously everybody's having babies, aren't they? But so it suddenly started to grow. So in 1 year it was 2.5 million, and then a few years later it was 4 million.
Yes.
But that's not many considering we're 64 million, is it?
Oh, I know. 64.
I can't believe it. I'm just in a minute going down. I didn't call this, Amy. Might be the bit I think it is. So it was quite a good trade route between England, Americas, and Africa around the top of South America, and then obviously they sailed back to Africa. So, what did the colonies import? So it says lumber, whatever that is. What's lumber? Wood.
Wood, yes.
Tobacco, rice, and dried fish to Britain. In return, the mother country, us, sent textiles and manufactured goods back to America. But then it says, what did we export? So that's what we're importing. So we exported fish, bread, flour, rice, dried fish, and indigo. But it just sounds a bit similar. All the things are the same. We're importing and exporting the same. Oh, no, I just thought it was a bit weird.
Yeah.
Tobacco was by far the highest value due to the duties assessed on its export from America and import into Britain. Anyway. So, they were smoking then. I wonder if it's on their tobacco.
Probably worried about that back then.
Well, I suppose yeah, anyway. So, what are the goods Western Europeans exported from the Middle Ages? So again, it's textiles, carving, spices, ivory, gum, and African slaves.
Oh, wow.
Slaves.
Exactly.
What was trade like in the medieval time? Most long-distance trade goods from within and beyond Europe, such as amber, high-quality textiles, wines, furs, honey, walrus ivory, spices, gold, slaves, and elephant ivory was carried in small sailing ships of the day. That's medieval England.
Gosh, well.
It's beginning to sound just, well, I don't know, probably that's all that happens today.
I know.
And let's put the video on.
Okay.
Go on here. What helped trade and business grow in the Middle Ages? Medieval Europeans began trading frequently at local markets and at the larger and less frequent fairs held in the towns and cities. These were both organised with the approval of local councilmen and church officials, who in turn fostered a growing trade-based economy. Talking of the Middle East, the Middle Ages. And what was trade like in the medieval England? Most long-distance trade goods from within and beyond Europe, such as amber, high quality. Oh, we've done that one. Sorry, we've done that one. Let's move on. I'm going back on myself. Yeah, it sounds quite civil as they were. Oh no! When did that stop? Oh no, it's recording. I thought it stopped recording. I was like, oh no! Right. What were the trade industries in the medieval England? So definition, all establishments primarily engaged in selling merchandise to retailers, to industrial, commercial, institutional, farm, constitution, contractors or professional business users, or to the other wholesalers, or acting as agents or brokers in buying merchandise for selling merchandise to such persons. Or that sounds quite complicated, doesn't it?
Oh, it does. Yeah.
Really, considering we were in this is 1500s here. Oh, here we go. Century is 1400s. So it's hundreds may refer to the century. Let's turn that off for a second, just for a second. To the century from the 1400s to 1499, almost I can't say the word, Amy, hang on. Synonymous with the 15th century, so 1401 to 1500s. That's why it gets called the 15th century. So it's 1401 to 1500, but it's all a bit complicated, isn't it? The way that they've... Don't you think?
I do. It is complicated. Yeah, whenever you want to know the century, I just always remembered it, put it one number above what year we're in. So like
maybe this is how they've been able to lose 100 years, so that we'll just call them the League of Gentlemen.
Yeah.
This is why they can mess around with 100 years.
Exactly. That's a great point.
Well, I think it is. That's the only reason I see it. It's confusing doing that, isn't it? Confusing. Yeah, sorry, Amy. My video recorder keeps stopping.
Yeah, well, it is confusing. So it probably has to do with that they took off 100 years or added 100 years. You just have to remember. Yeah.
And also, so the next bit, Amy. When did the Black Plague, the Black Death start? It says 1346 to 1352.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure exactly when was the...
I was really shocked. So what took place during the 14th century? That's the 1300s, isn't it? 1346, so the same year we get Black Plague. English forces led by Edward III defeat a French army led by Philip VI of France in the Battle of whatever that is, a major point in the 100-Year War, which marks the rise of the longbow as a dominant weapon in the Western Europe, 1347 to 1351. The Black Death kills around a third of the population of Europe.
Yes.
At the same time. But this is the War of the Roses, I think. Or it's going to start after this. So not long after these dates comes the War of the Roses, because that was before Henry VIII. And he's the sort of 1500s. So, yeah, it's all a bit crazy. But they've got the same dates. 7 years. Then they have 7 years. Black Plague.
Right. So it was the Black Plague. Yeah, is that the same? The plague, the Black Death is
yeah, I think that's the same thing, Amy.
Yeah, where they said.
But they could say anything, can't they? They can say anything now. Yes, they can say we've got all these things. But how the hell do we know? I actually think it's when they started bringing us in.
Oh, maybe so.
Wherever we've come from.
That's right, because we just really don't know.
That's right. Then it says, how much did a house cost in medieval times? So basically about £10.
Wow.
But they do say an expensive house was £100. But that's obviously not for the mansions, you know, like the Lord of the Manor House. They probably cost £100. But the paupers or the smaller houses were £10.
£10. Yeah, that doesn't sound too bad, but I guess back then it was more expensive.
Yeah, and moving on. So I thought that was quite interesting. I want to know, Amy, how much in medieval times did a horse cost?
A horse?
Yeah. How many shillings?
How many shillings?
Yeah.
I don't know. I would guess maybe 100 shillings.
It was 5 to 10 shillings. There were 12.
Oh, okay.
There were 12 pennies in a shilling, so a basic pack horse would cost our labourer 15 days' wages. A top of the range one would cost 30. So 30 days of working got you a top of the range horse.
Oh wow!
But that sounds, all these things. I mean, it would take you, if you wanted to buy a horse, it would take you. I just think nothing much has changed. That's what I see. Except obviously we're not riding horses quite as much as we were in those days. But that's if that was going along in the good. So, right, here we go. Medieval times. So in 1465, the rose noble was created with 120 pence, and the angel worth 80. Oh, I don't know. It's just talking about how much was a gold coin worth in medieval times. So there you go. You can read that one. Sorry, Amy. You can reach that one when they get to it.
Okay.
16 pence looks like would buy you a bit of gold.
Okay.
A rose noble was created with 120 pence, and the angel worth 80 pence. Gold coins were always much more valuable than the silver ones used in normal life, but not all money existed in forms of coins. Well, that sounds like double Dutch, doesn't it?
Oh, it does.
Life is double Dutch. Is Dutch. Oh, so what's that one? The 15th century saw. Oh, right, that's what money was used in the 15th century? So they're saying, yeah, it was. That was so we've got another form of money here, sealed florin, coined from 1422. So another set of money, but in 1465 there was another one, which is here. Crazy that, isn't it? This is obviously where they're taking over, isn't it?
Yes.
Back with the Romans, all the Romans, whatever it is, we're still is. So the sword.
Maybe you mean in shillings? Maybe 10 shillings?
Well, they said it's a couple of days' work would have got you a sword.
Oh, okay.
But don't you think we do things like that today? Well, it's going to take me 6 months to save up for that bed. whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. Same thing with bar or anything else that you want to get.
Yeah, it's all sort of not dissimilar going on. Who was in the Inca centre of resistance and learning? End of the Byzantine Empire, beginning of the Ottoman Empire, the War of the Roses, civil wars were between noble factions began in England to 1485. Yeah, because that's going to be the end of the War of the Roses, isn't it?
Right.
I don't know why it's brought up her Incas rule in Peru when it's talking about. But anyway, so that's a little bit more. Anyway, let's move on to I don't know. We're going to stop there. The exports of the colonies consisted mainly of woolen textiles, imports sugar, tobacco, and other tropical groceries, for which there was a growing consumer demand. That sounds like today, doesn't it? Consumer demand.
It really does.
So they don't have supermarkets, it's all markets.
That's right.
Or, I mean, you know, I just think when they're importing all these rugs and things, how do they do all that? Did the people order them, or they just brought them here and people bought them?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Because they don't have, they only have markets.
Yes.
I'm going to the market for our clothes, our household goods, our food, and our drink. I'm going to the market for it.
Yes, probably so.
I wonder how can you bring the horse and cart to pick it up? Or the car, depending on like how far, because the cars obviously started earlier than they said they did. But anyway, moving on, let's have a look. The colonies, which was lumber. Oh, we've done that one. I think we've done that one. I'm going to another one now. Here we go. What goods did England ship? So basically, manufactured products such as guns, clothes, furniture, and tools. That's changed a little bit now. This is what did the British bring to the colonies?
Yeah.
So, I think we're still in the sort of the 15th, 16th or 17th century.
Yes, it sounds like it.
No, let's move on. Basically, we got to the 1800s. Did America in the 1800s? People can read that for themselves. While the American Revolution freed American merchants from British restrictions, because that's 1770 something, isn't it? Your Independence Day.
Yes, 1776.
It says it also denied Americans British protection and brought American traders into direct conflict with British trade policies. Between the Revolution, 75% of American exports went to England, Ireland, and the West Indies. Before the Revolution.
Wow.
Never goes into details. They're just little they're little header bars.
Exactly.
Anyway, I didn't go up as that was probably the latest one I did because I was trying to find what was happening in the Middle Ages. What did again with the Middle Ages? Almost no cloth at all in 1347, but by 1400 about 40,000 clothes a year were being exported. The trade reached its first peak in 1447, and that got to 60,000 bits of clothing.
Oh my.
But we never really, because was this when we were the industrial revolution of industry here, where everything was to do with, well, it's all gone now, isn't it? But was to do with all the old big buildings, you know, and then the cotton mills and all that.
Yeah, I thought they came later. What year did you say?
1347, because they were exporting clothes.
Oh, okay, yes.
Crazy, isn't it, when you think about it? I did not find much in the 1300s, because when you go to the computer, you look it up, it starts in the 1400s, but here it says, not at all in 1347, but by 1400, so, and then it went up again, 1447, 60,000.
Oh, wow.
But that's not that much, is it, when that's the trade for the whole year in clothing, it was only 60,000, you think it would be, oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, anyway, let's move on because this is becoming very long, Amy. Anyway, exploration changed the end of the 1400s improved. Sailors used compasses to find their bearing or direction of travel. And then the astrolabe helped sailors determine their distance north or south from the equator. Finally, improved weapons gave Europeans a huge advantage over the people they met in their explorations. Doesn't sound that good, does it?
No.
This is the how did exploration change in the 1400s? So this is the War of the Roses time, when I think this is where most of us came to here.
Oh,
it was just after that. That's what I reckon. Maybe it was the locals trying to fight off the new... they're going to bring hundreds of slaves here. Fight them? I don't know.
I don't either.
Yes, it is what they've told us it is. So stop the video. How did medieval Europe make money? Money was earned by those living in both the city and the country alike, made up of farmers, ranchers, and day labourers. Artisans, porters, retailers, and vendors that were also unemployed. Citizens were in general very poor, although there were those that made a pretty good living. Well, that sounds like today, doesn't it?
It does. Very much.
Yeah. Don't forget. So what was the 1400s known as? The period of European history extending from 500 to 1500s CE is traditionally known as the Middle Ages. So there you go. It went from the 500 to 1500. That's 1,000 years.
Yes.
I thought that was quite interesting. But anyway, great. That's quite interesting. 1,000 years. But anyway, let's move. I just got what is real or not about the Black Death. Anyway, so I had to go back because the video keeps stopping and stuff. So we had to start again. Here we go. More. What happened in England in the 1400s? How did we get the plague? Basically looked in here. What they said was somewhere in here that I'm not sure if we're coming up to that bit, but through implementation of quarantines. It's the most popular theory of how the plague ended. And basically they asked people to stay in their homes and only leave when it was necessary, while those who could afford to do so would live more densely, in the populated areas, and would live in greater isolation. But I mean, that's more or less what they told us that we had to do for this thing last year.
Yes.
So that's a bit strange, isn't it? Nothing's moved on then. 1400s.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, except maybe they inject you today. Anyway, let's move on.
That's right.
And talks of disease was basically out, but here, what is it? That's how I'm not reading his name, but it's ran in the 1400s in Europe. It says around 1,300 countries of prosperity and growth in Europe came to a halt. A series of famines and plagues, including the Great Famine, 1315 to 1317, and the Black Death, reduced the population to half of what it had been before the calamities. Along with the depopulation came social unrest and what's that? Demonic welfare. Hang on, Amy.
Does that mean like let me see.
Endemic warfare. Well, that all sounds quite organised, doesn't it? Then into whatever it was. Yeah. And that's the 1300s.
Yes. Endemic refers to a particular area.
Yeah, Europe and parts of the world had this, but it seemed to destroy half the people in the world.
I know.
We're moving on, Amy. But I think here, and that bit out. A minute, 1 second. Go back here. Done that bit. So how much was a pound in medieval times? I think we just skipped through that one. Shilling and a shilling. Some of the things were a little, can't work out anyway. The peasant in the Middle Ages. So basically, their income was one goat a week. And everybody
Oh
over the
my!
age of 15 had to pay tax. Oh, what a surprise!
I know.
Large families found it especially difficult to raise the money. For many, the only way they could pay the tax was selling their possessions. That just sounds awful.
It's terrible.
But this is the medieval ages, but it doesn't say when. We already know that goes from 500 to 1500, so that's 1,000 years. So in that 1,000 years, you've got a goat a week.
Yes.
That means you'd have, what's that? You'd have, there's 50 odd goats a year, wouldn't you?
That's right.
Oh,
That's all.
yeah.
That's all. Yeah.
No. So how does sword fall? I think we even took how much worth the price is there. So we're back to that denarii again now. So it was 100 to 200 denarii.
Oh, yeah.
And that sounds like we must have been run by something else then to have that money, because obviously money has the king or queen's head on it.
It's Roman. I looked it up. It's Roman.
Well, there you go then.
There you go. That's right.
So there you go. It's all Roman.
Yeah, exactly. I should have thought about that when I said I read it in the Bible, because that was the Roman one. So I should have thought.
I sort of anyway. How much is an Elizabethan penny worth today? Doesn't really tell you, but $2 or $2.50 American dollars.
Oh
English
wow,
money,
that's
coined in 1600 would probably be equivalent to about $2 or $2.50 American dollars today, considering what it could buy in Shakespeare's day. A loaf of bread, for example, or a generous portion of beer. Yeah. Let's move on.
That's good.
Yeah, sometimes the things sound is one question. How much was a gold coin worth in medieval times? In 1465, the rose noble was created worth 120 pence. Oh, we've read that one. We've done that one. So we're moving on from that one. Basically, Jack Cade's rebellion. The Kentishmen revolted against Henry VI. 1450, July 12th, Jack Cade was slain in a revolt against the British King Henry VI. 1450, October 5th. Jews were expelled from the Lower Bavaria by order of Ludwig the 9th. So these are things that were happening around 1450.
Yeah,
stuff. So again, isn't it really?
It is.
As well. I just didn't even back to the 13 colonies. So it was tobacco, bread, flour, rice, dried fish, and indigo. So I think we've read that one before, but it's just that import. What did they export, and what did we import? So we exported tobacco, flour, rice, dried fish, and indigo, and we imported lumber, tobacco, rice, and dried fish. It's almost the same.
It is.
So how does that work when we're exporting and importing?
Yeah, you would think it would be something different. Like, we would give what we had and you would give us what we had. I would think tea would be in there.
No, it doesn't say tea.
Drink? I know, it doesn't say tea.
And it doesn't say we're importing tea.
Yeah. So maybe the tea
not at this time. We're talking of the 1400s, 1500s. It wasn't happening then. But tobacco, rice, and dried fish. Rice is on there.
Yes.
Let's move on.
Well, it's yes.
Carry on.
Oh, I was just going to say that I think you had read it before about Britain sent back the textiles and manufactured goods back to America.
Yeah, but this is what I'm saying.
So
when you look it up, they're all saying different things. Nothing ever matches up. No one says the same thing.
Yeah, that's right.
But it says, in turn, the mother country sent textiles and manufactured goods back to America.
Yes.
The mother country.
Yeah.
Do you hear that? Your mother country.
You're the mother country. That's right.
Whatever it is, whatever was running us, whether it's the Roman Empire, whatever it was.
It was the mother country.
Basically, the explorations in the 1400s were for gold, gold, and glory. And that says colonization in the New World. So that's what they were explorating, was God, gold, and glory. Doesn't say wars, does it? But yeah, let's move on. And then we've got a few more minutes to go yet. Amy? We've lost Amy! It's all going crazy today, Amy. Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
It's all going crazy today.
I know. I don't know why it keeps going out.
Never mind. We have these problems on Hangouts. In fact, it's still recording, but never mind. So what happened in the 1400s to the 1500s? China grows under the Ming dynasty with capital at Beijing, agriculture, navigation, what's that word?
Confusion.
It's Asian. Ism at the end.
I think it's Confucianism.
That one. And the arts thrive. Chinese trading ships export tea, silk, and porcelain to India. What do you mean? Why would we be exporting tea to India?
Yeah.
Chinese trading ships exported tea, silk, and porcelain to India, Africa, and Europe.
Yeah.
1450,
right.
The printing press is developed. 1450.
Wow.
Yeah, that's what I think. Wow. On we go.
I know.
It's like with pay, but it's hundreds of Africans put it there. So this is the slave trade. That's what they're saying.
Okay. Yeah.
But the Barbary ships caught people and made them into slaves, and that was anybody and everybody. And I just think once you went to these countries like America, once you went over there and you were promised all this land and everything, you were quarantined. So we were all slaves.
Yes.
I think that's the bit that they haven't told us. Do you think, Amy?
I agree. Yeah, they haven't told us that because they want us to be divided, but we were all slaves.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Right, let's just move on. So we're going on. I think I actually looked it up that far, yeah. Yeah, have a look. When did England trade? What did England trade in the 1500s? But again, what it basically says is the population was at a certain thing, then it dropped to 2.5 million, and then 1600 had grown to 4 million a few years later, because it's all to do with the Black Death.
Yes.
It's a bit hard to sort of, you're just going through the questions, and a lot of them say they invented it. So it said, did the rats cause the plague? And they're saying, because it moves so quickly, they don't think it was the rats, because it'd have to harbour in them, and then they'd infest you. And it was moving so quickly, they didn't think it was the rats.
Oh, okay.
This is to do with the plague.
I always thought it was the fleas and the rats or something like that.
Well, it almost looks like a flea they've got up, to be honest. Scientists now believe the plague spread too fast for the rats to be the culprits. Rats had long been blamed for the spreading of the Black Death around Europe in the 14th century. And this was done in 2018, so it's a few years ago.
Yes.
Or 997 was when they made the first pizza, but nothing is what they say it is, so yeah.
That's right.
Well, it isn't, is it? Is what they say.
You can't believe anything.
I looked that one up. How did the knights go to the toilet?
That's a good one.
They needed assistance of his squire to lift or remove the rear thing so that they could sit and squat. the queulet.
So.
The queulet, it was called. I've probably said they'll tell me off. They say, no, you don't say it like that. Say it like. But anyway,
no.
And then, but this amazed me. Just going to go on. It says, how much was pepper in the Middle Ages? Nevertheless, for a brief time, the price of pepper was held at 800 denarii per Roman pound. So there you go. It's explaining that it's Roman.
Yes.
And then it says, at the time, a Roman soldier earned 1,350 denarii per annum, which represented quite a drop in purchasing power. I think we're going to get to it in a moment, that actually pepper was worth more than gold. Where was it? So, anyway, so there you go. That's what pepper. Strong about pepper, but anyway, I'm just looking. I get to. I had to put it back a little bit. How much was a farthing? Is that? Which quarter penny? Is that right? It was a farthing. But stop at this. What was happening in the world in 1475? There was battles going on now, and the defeats of the Ottoman Empire. I thought that went in 1925, to be honest. But anyway, the conqueror of because Constantinople was conquered. The Bulgarian Wars, Edward the Fourth of what's that? The Fourth of England lands in Calais. Support of the Duchy of Burgundy against France. What was happening in 1480? There's more there. It's about Spanish. People can read that one. There's too many words that I don't know in there. So anyway, going on in Europe in the 1450s. It says by 1450, Europe saw an increase in literacy, urbanization, and connection to the global community. And at one time, the only literate people of Europe were monks and other men tied to the Catholic Church. Really? Gutenberg's printing press will change this. At one time, Europe was closed from trade with the rest of the world. Wow. But they don't go on any further than that, so you don't know really what it all means, because it just explains a little tiny bit.
Right.
Let's move on. So basically, what era is the 1400s? In Europe, the 15th century includes part of the late Middle Ages, the early Renaissance, and the early modern period. So, decades, 1410, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90s is the 14th century. The 15th century, so it goes 14th century, 15th century, 16th century. I don't know, it's just all confusing, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
It really is. But anyway, anybody else finds that really weird when you say you're feeling? This is all to do with armour, right? Medieval knights wore metal armour or iron or steel to protect themselves from archers and longswords or of opponents. From the 9th century, chainmail suits gave protection. And you just think the 9th century they were making chainmail armour.
Yeah, I
know. 9th century.
Yeah.
So we were obviously far more together then.
That's true.
If you could make armour, so no wonder they were exporting and all that. Advanced. Then nothing really happened. But it didn't. It was all happening. Yes. Now, hang on, let's go back a tiny bit. How did people... No, we've done that one. I've put it back too far. How did people really wear suits of armour? Medieval knights wore metal... Oh, we've done that one. So I thought I thought I missed one.
No.
Here we go. How did they wipe? Did people really wear suits of armour? How did they wipe? That's what it says in the medieval. And those sticks have been popular for cleaning. Oh my gosh, I let people read that one. It's talking about the toilet again. Right, I let people read that one. We're going to move on.
Okay.
That's nice. That's nice. I do night, all to do with the Romans and the Romans. It was for battle better than yeah.
But I wasn't sure why they wore them. I just always knew it was a Scottish tradition.
But the Romans had them, and then when you think about it, a kilt doesn't. Although it may look like different material, they don't particularly look that different from the Roman ones. Not really. They're all part of the same thing. That's what that is.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, in medieval times, it was pepper. So pepper was used by the Greeks, Romans, and Chinese for medicine purposes. In medieval times, it was used as currency, and at times worth more than gold and silver. And the pepper trade was worth more than gold and silver.
Wow, that's really something.
Yeah, I thought that was amazing.
It is amazing.
I think about that every time I pour some on my dinner. Oh, I'm so rich. But I'm feeling it's good for you, pepper. Medicine.
It's good.
So this one, spices were used to camouflage bad flavours and odours for their health benefits. Spiced wines were also popular. European, whatever it is, Asian spices such as ginger, pepper, nutmeg, cinnamon, saffron, and cardamom. Yeah, that one. Yeah. As well as garden herbs in their remedies. And what's that? Hang on. Yeah, so lots of bits of true. I wanted to see what they were, what it was like. Yeah, anyway, it usually tells me. Anyway, my video recorder has been really naughty tonight, but we're coming right at the end. See all the millions of questions. I think I might give up now because I was like, well, talk about it now. So, we're going to finish in a moment, Amy. What's your thoughts on all those bits I read out? I can't tell if they're real or not.
I think it's very fascinating. That's really good that you looked all that up because it's really interesting. But we always end up with more questions because we don't know what really happened, and I think they try to make it confusing on purpose. To make it complicated so that we don't know what really took place. But you're right, it sounds like it wasn't much different from today, except we're more, we have like the supermarkets and stuff like that today. So some things have changed, but basically it's about the same.
If we knew how old the star forts were, or some of these big buildings, we'd be able to say a bit more, but because we don't, you know, like I did bed pans and that, but obviously some of them are older, and you might have an old one and think it's Victorian, but it's older. Do you see what I mean? Like, we just don't know because they've lied.
That's right. And I don't know that we'll
and everything's getting older, isn't it? Everything's going back to the 16th and 17th century now.
Oh, yes. Yeah, when they told us everything came along pretty much at the beginning of the 1900s, beginning of the 20th century, they said all this stuff came along, but it seems like they had a lot of the technology way back when.
It does.
Yes, they just lie about it.
Well, thanks for helping me do that video, Amy. I didn't quite know what to do with it because I looked things up. But I was just wanting to see what it was like because I've done the one about the ships. The ships didn't really change. The guns didn't really change. Nothing changes much. But it's changed. Right. They've made it look like it's changed magically now, but not if we had cameras in the 1700s. It's just all ridiculous, isn't it?
Oh, it is. But
so basically, we were more advanced anyway, even only a few hundred years ago, and then something happened, and then we weren't. Whether it's mud floods or whatever, but something big happened.
Yes.
They're putting it into the Black Depth, so it might have even been then. It might have been back then, but so where do all these people come from? Because the amount of, whether we call them Tartaria buildings or whatever, all that architecture, there was even more and more and more of them. They've destroyed so much, and when you think, you know, like Our Melted Reality says that clay comes from melted brick.
Yes.
And you're like, cool, they have clay things, and it's full of, how many houses were in there? Like, what was going on if clay is melted brick? I say, I've got a feeling there was a lot more of us before. So they're saying there wasn't many people, and I'm saying there was.
Right.
But only from so many years ago. You know, like, something happened, the War of the Roses, something big happened then.
Yeah.
That could have been when all the star forts were destroyed at the end of that. I don't know.
I don't either.
But with all the buildings and what our melted reality says, I would have said that in the past somehow there had to be more people. And this is showing that we didn't. That the Black Death, well, maybe we did, but the Black Death killed everybody off.
Yes.
So it's all bananas, isn't it?
It really is.
But we can still trade and all this kind of stuff's going on. I don't know. It's all a bit weird. But it sounds like with the Black Plague, everything stopped for a while. There's no real government. There's no money coming in. The economies.
Yeah, pretty similar to how we've had it.
Yeah, obviously these things are in cycles, aren't they? And they create them all.
It definitely seems that way. And then I think they have cycles and then they have resets, is what they do. It's very, it's just really astonishing to think about.
Yeah, we just wish they'd bog off, personally.
And I used to take pride in learning my history facts, you know, and now I feel like, well, it's not
I told my
even
neighbour,
true.
you know, my neighbour's got a flag flying, Amy. It's a Union Jack. It's all to do with the war things, because obviously the guy next door to me was a soldier, part of his life. So I had to tell him the other day it was all fake.
Oh my, how did he take it?
He just listened. He probably thinks she's mad and then forget about it. And I feel sorry for him. I had to say, I really feel for people like you that risked your life for your country and you actually know what it means. And I said, you with that flag there, you're inviting them to come into your house and take your house over.
Yes.
He just doesn't realise, and these people will never go and investigate, so it's almost pointless. But Amy, we're at the end of the video.
Okay, Karen.
Is there anything else you'd like to say?
I think that's all. Thank you for having me. It was very fascinating.
But I'm just so shocked. It was so shocked that, and also in India's trade. So there's the India Trading Company comes in as well.
I know.
I didn't get into all that because I just thought, oh, we'd be here forever.
Yeah, it's so much.
Yeah.
It is, but it was very fascinating. I learned a lot.
Well, you learnt some trivia.
Yeah, more than I knew before.
Oh, thanks for helping me, Amy, because I didn't quite know what I was going to do with this one. It's a bit of a strange one, but I just wanted to know what it was like, roughly. So, in one sense, it was horrible and hard. In the other sense, we're trading away with textiles, rice, and whatever.
Yes.
So it's all a bit weird, really. But I suppose they'd say that about today, wouldn't they?
They would.
So nothing's changed, has it?
No, it's not changing. Not changing. So it's good food for thought.
Thank you, my darling. Thanks for helping me.
Oh, you're welcome, my darling.
Thank you, Amy.
You're welcome, Karen.
Thanks, chat room.